Hello and welcome to LGBTQ 101. My name is Lisa Kennecke. That's me in the bottom right-hand corner, not in real life, but that's just a picture of me. I live in the Madison, Wisconsin area, and I'm very, very excited to bring this fun, less than 30-minute webinar to you today regarding LGBTQ 101, or lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning 101. For some of you, this is going to be new information. For some of you, it might be a refresher. So let's go ahead and think about things that we could learn today. You can take notes. I'll have a plethora of resources for you at the end as well. A little bit of background on myself is that I was a camp director for 20 years with the Girl Scouts and the YMCA, then 12 years as a middle and a high school counselor, and delighted now to say that I'm a counselor educator training the next generation of school counselors. I grew up on a farm, and it wasn't an option to be gay. So it wasn't until I was 27 years old at a Thanksgiving dinner that my sister actually told me I was gay. So I'm going to take you through my 24 years of experience of being in the LGBT community, and it'll be fun. Here we go. In the alphabet soup of LGBTQIA, you can see another A there too, we use this acronym to describe the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. The first three letters, LGB, refer to sexual orientation. The T refers to gender identity. And you may also have seen the letters Q, I, and A. Now I'm going to tell you what those stand for. Q could stand for two things: queer, which is a term people often use to express fluid identities and orientations, often used interchangeably with LGBTQ. And the Q can also represent questioning, which is a term used to describe people who are in the process of exploring their sexual orientation or gender identity. As a middle school counselor, I'll tell you that the age of the group right there were a lot of kids who were questioning. And if you are going into education or anything having to do with children, I'm going to tell you that you're going to be seeing a lot more kids who are identifying as trans, and I'll talk about that in a few slides later on. The I in our alphabet soup stands for intersex, and that is a term used to describe a person with both reproductive or sexually ambiguous anatomy. So they don't fit the typical binary as we would think about that. So baby comes out, has both parts. Dr. Hen tells the adult, usually the mom, this is what it is. And an interesting fact is that there are more babies, people, born intersex than those who have cleft palates. I know, fascinating. So there are a couple of A's that are shown on the screen. I'm just going to talk about the big A that I like, and that stands for ally. So as you're listening to this, you are all an ally. So thank you for being here. We have a lot of history in the LGBT world. So some of you may be familiar with the pink triangle. I know I don't have that picture up here, but think about back in Nazi Germany, and a downward pointing pink triangle was sewn onto shirts of gay men in concentration camps, even if they weren't gay, if they were presumed to be gay, to identify and further dehumanize them. So we in the LGBT community have taken that symbol back as a power of strength. Now, on your show right now, or the slide that you see, these are pictures from the 1969 Stonewall riots, and they happened in June. I'll talk about that in a moment. It's important to remember that. So this was in Greenwich Village, and I would say that this is probably the start of our gay revolution. So it was a hot night in June, and at the Stonewall Inn, there was a police raid, which was common in those times. And this time, the patrons of the bar, a lot of them refer to themselves as drag queens. So you see the picture on the right, fought back. They weren't going to take it anymore. So they threw coins, lots of different things. And again, I will say that this was probably the start of the gay revolution. And another reason why so many people celebrate Pride Month in June. So it is to commemorate those folks from the Stonewall riots. Now, there are a lot of symbols that I'm showing you on this next slide. And the one that I really love to talk about is the rainbow flag, which was developed in 1978 by Gilbert Baker. Even though he was born in Kansas, he was living in the San Francisco area at the time of all of this influx. And Gilbert came up with the symbol of the rainbow flag as a unity symbol so that all folks would have an identity. And the original flag that he created also had the colors pink and turquoise in it. But later on, as time went on and making more flags, it was harder to find the pink and turquoise fabrics. So the Roy G. Biv stood the test of time. So that's what you're used to seeing. Now, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the Philly flag. That was developed in June 2017 for Pride Fest in the city of Philadelphia. The brown and black stripes represent QPOC, or queer people of color. Now, I tried to find the actual person who designed this. All I could come up with in my research was that it was adopted by the city of Philadelphia for their Pride Fest. So there you go. You could do some homework on that one. But I will tell you, in the bottom right-hand corner, we have our Progress flag. And so in June, again, 2018, Pride Fest, designer Daniel Quasar released a redesign incorporating the elements from both the Philly flag, which you see up above, and the trans pride flag to focus on inclusion and progress within our community. So as you take a look at the bottom right-hand Progress flag, you'll see that it's got the brown and the black stripes to represent QPOC, or queer people of color. It also has the light blue, pink, and white. The light blue and the pink represent those folks who identify as transgender, and the white represents folks who are questioning. So you can use any of these symbols. You have a lot from the vector stock there as well. But just know that most common is the rainbow flag for most of us with the Roy G. Biv. Now, you may be saying, Lisa, that's great, but why do you care? I'm so glad you asked. It was my second year as a middle school counselor, and a seventh grader came into my office and said to me this quote, "Miss Kennecke, it's easier to pretend that I'm a boy than it is to be gay." At that time, I was a 40-year-old woman of white privilege, and I was like, how am I going to help this kid? So I decided that I needed to step up my allyship, and that's when I finally came out to the students. I was fortunate enough this past February to actually do a TED Talk on the topic of Allies Save Lives. So if you go to my website, which the resource is later on, you'll be able to see my TED Talk. And I just talk about my experiences being gay, all sorts of things like that. Again, you don't have to feverishly take notes. I'm going to have a handout with terms for you at the end. And if you take a look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see gender spectrum. So great resource right now, especially for our students who are going through their own identities. A lot of this information comes from gender spectrum. You're going to hear terms like gender identity, gender expression, gender fluid, gender nonconforming, gender queer, cisgender, all of those kind of things. So you can find a lot of that information at Gender Spectrum. I love these two resources that I'm showing you right now. The poster on the left and the poster on the right come from Teaching Tolerance. Great organization, and they have a lot of free resources for you. They are based out of, oh my gosh, I think Georgia, the Southern Poverty Law Center. And if you go to tolerance.org, and we'll talk about that later, you can get a lot of free resources. And in the middle, my heart of hearts goes to GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. This is a safe space sticker. And if the only thing that you get out of this webinar is that you put a rainbow sticker or have something rainbow in your office or cubicle or even on your front door or in your car, we in the LGBT community know that you are a safe person and an ally. So again, lots of fun references out there. I said I was going to talk more about the transgender community. So here it is, because you are going to be you're going to be meeting a lot more students, as well as, I'm going to say parents, who are going to be transitioning. And on the left, you'll see a wonderful book that if you don't have a copy of it, I'm going to highly encourage you to go out and get and have it in your resource library. And it's I Am Jazz. So it is by Jazz Jennings. Jazz is a lot older than that cutie patootie in the picture right there. And the cool thing about this is that I actually met Jazz Jennings. True story. So now you can say you know someone who's done a TED Talk and who has met Jazz Jennings. Bonus! I was in Portland, Oregon, doing a presentation for the Human Rights Campaign, and Jazz and her mom were walking back from Voodoo Donuts as my wife and I were on our way to Voodoo Donuts. So, you know, we talked about that in Portland. It was very, very fun. And I thank Jazz for being courageous. And I thank Jazz's mom for supporting Jazz, because Jazz is born a male and is transitioning to female. So that would be an M to F, male to female. You might hear the term F to M, and that's female to male. The other thing about Jazz Jennings is, if you want to see the true life and the transformation and how Jazz is living today, if you go to TLC, there is a series called I Am Jazz on there. So you can watch the whole Jazz Jennings story. And again, I talked a little bit about the trans flag in the last slide. I'm sorry, 2 slides ago, but you will see that is the transgender flag that was created in 1999 by Monica Holmes. So I love giving credit where credit is due. And the term transgender is an umbrella term to refer to all gender nonconforming people, and it became more commonplace in the late 1980s. You're doing a great job sticking with me. So let's move on. Again, more information regarding the difference between the T's. You've probably heard the term transgender and transsexual. We do not use the term hermaphrodite anymore. So just erase that out of your vocabulary. No hermaphrodites anymore. And if this were in person, I would ask for people to raise their hands and tell me, who are these 2 lovely people that are on the screen right now? On the left, you have Laverne Cox. Laverne Cox is a person who identifies as transgender, and she's living her life as a transgender person. On the right, you will see Chaz Bono. Now, again, I'm a little bit older than probably most of you listening to this, but Chaz used to be Chastity Bono. Let me rephrase that. Not used to be. Chaz was born Chastity Bono. Do you remember Cher, the singer? Yeah, so Chastity Bono was Sonny and Cher's daughter. And then Chaz found Chaz's true self and then became transsexual. So that was the transition. So Chaz actually had gender reassignment surgery. You can see the facial hair and all of that kind of stuff. Keep in mind that transgender is an adjective and should never be used as a noun. So you could say that Max is a transgender person, but you never say Max is transgendered, and we never use the ED on there. And as doing research for this, talking to a friend of mine who also identifies as transgender, never, ever, ever ask about a person's junk, or if they've had top surgery or bottom surgery. Basically, treat them as they're identifying, no questions asked. So there you go. There's also a Transgender Day of Remembrance, and it's held every year on November 20th, and it memorializes all those who are murdered due to transphobic hate and prejudice. Some of you may be privileged enough to have gone through a drive-through of that little picture on the left there. There is a certain fast food restaurant that if you go through and you might order a meal for a kid and the meal makes them happy, you know what I'm talking about. What's the next question that the person will ask? That's right. Do you want a girl toy or a boy toy? Can't they just have one toy? Come on. Doesn't everybody love Legos? Thank you. That's what binary is. There are lots of examples of an all-gender restroom sign. I love this one that's in the middle for you because it includes male, female, and it includes those who don't identify in the binary, as well as folks who are differently abled. Now, I would love the motion sign in the wheelchair where the person is leaning forward, but I couldn't find that one. But the neat thing about this sign is that it also includes a baby, and that signifies that there's a baby changing station in there. Because if I am transitioning from, let's say, F to M, female to male, and I have a baby, so many times in the men's best restroom, there aren't baby changing stations. And so just keep that in mind if you have the opportunity to change policies, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So when we talk about binary, again, I'm giving you more symbols of those kind of identities that are there. And none of us is 100% homosexual, just as none of us is 100% heterosexual. Same goes for male and female. Even though I am born female and I identify as female, so that's cisgender, I've got a little bit of testosterone in me and I can fall somewhere on the binary spectrum. So gender binary is the classification of gender into two distinct and opposite forms of masculine and feminine, whether by social system or cultural belief. Yep, I got that right from the dictionary. So gender expansive and gender queer are two terms you're going to hear a lot more used by people to describe themselves as somewhere on the gender spectrum. And again, talking more than just binary. Speaking of binary, beyond the binary, this is a 52-page resource that I'm going to give you toward the end of the presentation. And it was put together by the National Center for Lesbian Rights, as well as some other community organizations. Now, granted, this resource was done in 2004, so there are probably newer things that are out there right now, but just to let you know that this is a great resource for you to take a look at myths, facts, policies, terms to use, terms not to use. So I just thought it was a great resource for you to have. And I love policies. I'm kind of a geek when it comes to that. When I was looking at schools that I wanted to be a school counselor at, one of the first things I did was I went to the website of the school to see what was enumerated out or what was listed out. And if sexual orientation wasn't a protected class, I didn't apply to that school. So something to think about so that I felt that I was represented as well as my students would be represented. This is an example right here of an intake form or a registration form. And so think about that. Do you see yourself represented? How would you feel if you had to put down that you were an other? I don't know about you, but I certainly wouldn't like that. So think about how you can advocate and maybe even change some policies to be more inclusive, because it doesn't cost money to change policies. One of the biggest things that you might come into when it comes to a school district is, okay, so now we have to change all of the bathrooms to include gender neutral. Well, yeah, by law, you kind of have to do that, but it doesn't cost any money to change policies. So that is something to think about as well. I'm not going to get specifically into the laws here because a lot of people listening to this are from different straights. Oh, you might be straight if you're listening to this. That's great. My apologies. A lot of you are from different states. But one of the things these two resources have is they have a global view for our nation. And so they will do things and they'll give you statistics specifically for your state. The one on the left is the Human Rights Campaign. Great resource for lots and lots of different things. And also the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. Now, again, there are different organizations out there. There's a Trans Law Center, etc. But these are the two that I wanted to focus on. Think about this. When you were in school, and let's just say that the school sponsored a chess club. Chess club is not part of the curriculum, so it's an extracurricular. If your school sponsors a chess club, the 14th Amendment says that you can also at your school have a GSA. So again, an umbrella term. A lot of folks will call it a gay straight alliance. And some now are calling it a gender spectrum alliance, gender sexual alliance. I've heard perspectives as a term, but just know that it's really good to have a student ask to start that club rather than having an adult start that club. And statistics and research says that if an LGBT student has one supportive adult in their life, so that they know that maybe there's a GSA at the school, their suicide attempt rates go down by 40%, 40%. So that's kind of a big deal. It's kind of important to have representation and to know what the laws are. 2017, my wife and I got married, and even though it became legal in all 50 states, and we live in the Madison, Wisconsin area, we still had to research where we wanted to live because not everyone is welcoming of us. So as we were driving around looking at homes, the current neighborhood that we're in had 2 homes, 3 houses apart that had the yard sign, something to the effect of Black Lives Matter, science is real, love is love. And so we knew that this was going to be a great neighborhood for us, and it has proven such as well. Thinking about cultivating respect, here are some other resources for you. And again, many more that are out there. But think about this. Is your school safe for parents to share their true identity? Are they same sex? Maybe they are fostering. Maybe they're transitioning. Maybe that's how you want your work life to be. There are things called ERGs, employee resource groups, that will help with this. So we want to cultivate respect for everyone. So the NEA, National Education Association, has a program called Do Something. So you can take a look at that. There's also a lot of information from, again, HRC, one of my favorites, the Human Rights Campaign, and it's called Welcoming Schools. This, as you can probably see from the picture, is really focused on the elementary school level and talking to kids about LGBT issues, trying to be inclusive in the curriculum. The little apple that I have there, this comes from a lot of information in the Washington State area, and it's called the Safe Schools Coalition. But again, lots and lots of different resources for you. And then near and dear to my heart is PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gay. That is a nationwide association, and they offer lots and lots of free trainings. So you can look up any of those to have more resources for you to help cultivate respect. You're watching this, so I'm guessing that you already are an ally. Or if not, by the end, hopefully I'll convert you into being an ally, and then you can advocate for all of us in this population as well. GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. I know that it doesn't include questioning and the bisexual or transgender in this, but again, when this was started by Kevin Jennings, these were the terms that were most broadly known. So what I love about GLSEN is not only do they give you free resources, but they have the voice of students who are actually going through issues right now. So it's not just me, Lisa Kennecke, telling you about this information. They've done a lot of research. They put out, it's called a climate study that you can take a look at as well. They have theme days. So for example, October 11th is also always National Coming Out Day. So you'll have a lot of students who know about that information. GLSEN also talks about preferred pronouns, and it'll give you information. In fact, they had posters about that said, don't say throw like a girl or boys will be boys. So again, when I was especially a high school counselor, I wanted to make sure that I met the football coach, because sometimes stereotypically that coach will say derogatory terms and, you know, we need to man up and do those kind of things. And so I just wanted I wanted the football coach to know, hey, I'm here, you know, and maybe you shouldn't be saying those things. So that's just me. But GLSEN has a lot of resources that you can use, and a lot of them are free. We're getting to the end, my friends. You've done a great job sticking with me. So here is your homework. As you can see, this is again coming from Teaching Tolerance. If you go to tolerance.org, you can see all of the different resources that are there for you. But on that blue over on the right, build a learning plan. here's an opportunity for you to give yourself a leg up. Let's say if you're looking for your practicum hours or your internship site, or even dare I say you're going into an interview, how cool would it be that you could say that you already have a learning plan? Now, I'm talking about the LGBT world, but you could do a learning plan for any marginalized population, which is what I love about this source right here. And so I'd love for you to go on there and use all of the resources that I'm going to talk about in a moment that I already have talked about. And feel free to share your learning plan with me if you have any questions about anything. We are in this together, and I'm so excited that you're going to be saving lives. Another resource that I didn't talk about that I want to draw your attention to is the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is the nationwide leading resource for suicide prevention. So they have an LGBT suicide prevention hotline that is staffed 24 hours a day. So check out the Trevor Project, as well as all of these resources. And I'm so excited to be here. So that's what I look like with my puppy. Her name is Maddie. I'd love to connect with you. LisaFromWisconsin@gmail.com. Check out my website, my blog. Oh yeah, and my TED Talk. Allies Save Lives. Thanks for being an ally and saving lives.